Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a look at some seriously practical and honestly kinda unconventional advice on marriage. We're exploring a source that's all about quick and refreshing lessons for everyday marital happiness. Now, instead of giving us vague, high-level theories, this material gets right down in the weeds. It breaks down common household tensions into totally actionable, everyday countermeasures. So let's see exactly how the author suggests we completely reframe our domestic lives.
Here's how we're going to break it down today. We've got 5 main concepts to cover: the trap of criticism, the power of listening, the cute wife strategy, starting a family religion, and finally, guarding your words. Let's get right to it.
First up, Section 1, the trap of criticism. The author establishes a pretty universal baseline right out of the gate here. Relationships stumble. It happens to literally all of us. But when things get rocky, our immediate, almost reflexive instinct is usually to just point the finger and criticize our partner, right?
Well, the author points out a fascinating core issue with that. Check out this quote: "Criticizing others is often just a hidden boast of your own abilities." Think about that for a second. When we think we're just airing a perfectly valid complaint, the text actually frames this as a cleverly disguised way of asserting our own superiority. We're basically saying, hey, I'm better than you at this, which, as you can imagine, instantly throws up a roadblock in the relationship.
So the crucial point is, how do we pivot away from that destructive instinct? The source prescribes a very specific internal shift. Instead of finding faults in your partner, it suggests you should start praising them in your heart. And notice, you don't necessarily have to say it out loud at first. The idea is that by simply stopping the constant search for flaws and shifting to silent internal praise, the other person will mysteriously begin to reflect on their own behavior. It's like flipping a switch in the dynamic.
Moving on to Section 2, the power of listening. This is presented as an incredibly potent tool, and the best part is, it requires absolutely no grand gestures. It's just a fundamental shift in how we actually receive our partner's words.
The author lays out a super clear cause and effect progression here. It all starts with simply listening actively to your partner's story, just giving them the floor. By truly hearing their side, you gain genuine understanding. And in this text's view, feeling understood is practically synonymous with feeling loved. In fact, the source claims that just sitting there and listening for a few hours without even trying to fix a single thing acts as this massive catalyst that automatically neutralizes a whole bunch of underlying domestic tensions.
But hey, what happens when passive listening just isn't cutting it? The text tackles a really specific scenario next. How should a wife handle a husband's apparent lack of affection? This question is our pivot point into the author's more traditional perspective on household roles and marital dynamics.
Which brings us to Section 3, the cute wife strategy. Here, the source material offers highly specific, actionable advice tailored for wives who might be feeling neglected. And as you'll see, it focuses really heavily on external presentation, attitude, and the overall vibe of the home.
The author draws a really sharp contrast here. Now, the common, perfectly understandable reaction is to lament the lack of affection, or, express frustration when a husband comes home exhausted to a messy house. But instead of that, the text suggests reviewing one's own appearance and actively considering how to be cute or endearing for him. Basically, rather than complaining, the wife is encouraged to keep things cheerful, keep the house tidy, and consciously act affectionately. The logic being that this welcoming atmosphere will naturally encourage her husband's love to return.
Now let's jump into Section 4, starting a family religion. I know, it sounds a bit intense, but this builds into one of the absolute most striking and unconventional concepts in the entire text. It deals directly with how a wife is advised to internally view a husband who has real, undeniable flaws. To set this up, the author introduces this concept called the computer diagnosis. It's a great metaphor. It describes that really common, destructive habit we have of coldly and logically analyzing our spouse's shortcomings. It's when a wife mentally runs the data. His salary is below average, he's falling behind his peers, maybe he's got physical flaws, or he's just unreliable. The text warns that as long as a household is running on this rigid, hyper-logical computer diagnosis, real love literally cannot develop.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the proposed antidote to that cold analysis. The text introduces the term family religion, and it is a deliberate, conscious practice. It's where a wife entirely unplugs the computer. She stops analyzing his factual flaws. Instead, regardless of the objective, real-world facts, she chooses to revere him in her mind as a wonderful existence. The text even goes as far as calling him the presiding deity of the household. It is a total, 100% suspension of criticism in favor of absolute internal reverence. So you've got this massive contrast between the cold logic of the computer diagnosis on one side and the blind faith of the family religion on the other. And the author makes a truly bold claim here. They argue that making this profound internal shift from analysis to faith, even if it's a secret held entirely in your own mind, will actually cause a seemingly unreliable husband to transform into a genuinely admirable person.
All right, moving into our final section, guarding your words. We've talked a ton about deep internal shifts, but the source transitions here to a super practical, in-the-moment tactic for when a fiery conflict is actively brewing and you've got an insult right on the tip of your tongue.
The text sets the stakes incredibly high for verbal arguments by treating the mouth as a literal gateway. The author views harsh, condemning words not just as sounds, but as living, breathing things. Once those dark, negative words escape the gateway of your mouth, they take on a life of their own. They get inside your partner's mind, they spark hatred, and they inevitably trigger a full-blown war of retaliation. Because of that, the absolute #1 priority in any domestic dispute is making sure that gate stays firmly locked.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an exact, prescribed sequence to neutralize that anger. Step 1, you have to actually recognize and feel those harsh words about to burst out. Step 2, immediately take a deep breath. Step 3, start counting numbers in your head, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10. And step 4, successfully guard that gateway to prevent those bad words from escaping. The promise here is that by the time you hit 10, that burning urge to drop a destructive phrase will have passed.
Which brings us to a final thought to leave you with today. Are our daily marital frustrations truly about our partner's objective flaws? Or are they in fact reflections of our own unguarded reactions and internal mindsets? Throughout all the lessons we've looked at today, from replacing criticism with internal praise, to the cute wife strategy, to starting a family religion, the source material repeatedly hammers home one core idea. Changing your partner begins entirely with changing your own internal state. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this structured look at these marital countermeasures gives you something fascinating to ponder in your own daily life.